Good morning. I just woke up in such a mood to be generous today. I don't know what's going on, but it could be your lucky day because I have a crisp, real $100 bill that I'm just itching to give away. Who would like it? All right, you in the pink shirt. First one, come on up. There you go. What is your name? Alice, thanks, enjoy. For the rest of you, make a quick mental note on what was the first thought that went through your head when I offered you the money. Hold that thought, we'll come back to it. So this is kind of a crazy fact about me, but you know, I was already 22 years old when I discovered that flan was a dessert. Flan was a dessert. Now don't get me wrong, I had had plenty of flan, and I'd actually had really good flan. But you see, when I was growing up, my very Italian mother had perfected the art of how to get 9 kids out the door in the morning on time for school. And you know what her secret was? It was all about the breakfast buffet. So we knew when we got up in the morning, you started at one end of the kitchen counter, and the menu was predictable. It started with bread, muffins, Pop-Tarts, peanut butter and jelly, honey, butter, a great selection of the highest quality cereals. You know, Captain Crunch, Cocoa Puffs. It went on, the juices, and of course Tang. Some of you are old enough to remember you had to have Tang. And then a big bowl just overflowing with beautiful fresh fruit. And there, at the end of the line, was a perfectly crafted caramel-covered flan. Now, you can imagine as an adult, when someone pointed out to me that, what are you talking about? Flan is a dessert. I had to get my mom on the line because I was so confused. I was like, Mom, am I crazy? Or didn't you used to have a flan at the end of every breakfast bar? And she said, well, of course I did. It's just milk and eggs. And besides, every Italian knows that flan comes under the category of health food. Well, my wacky, independent thinking mom not only rocked the breakfast bar, she also earned a PhD, speaks 6 languages fluently, and according to the small town local gossip, she threw the best parties you had ever seen. In my mind, there was nothing my mom couldn't do. I mean, it was like she had superpowers. Until later, as an adult, I looked at her through a different lens, and what I realized is there was a whole category in which she had 0 skills, and that was in her ability to receive, the ability to be a receiver. Now, I introduced my mom to you because guess what? I believe that you all have a lot in common with her. I mean, let's look at it. You are ridiculously talented, admit it. The Denver restaurant scene and hospitality is just off the chart. You're crazy hard workers, multi-talented, multitaskers, and you're amazing at creating experiences for others. Whether that's food, ambiance, service, hospitality, you do it all. But my guess is you're not necessarily superstars in the receiving department. Could that be true? So let's go back to that $100 bill. And just think for a minute, what was that first thought that may have stopped you from jumping up here and grabbing that money out of my hand? You remember what you were thinking? So you might have been thinking, well, I don't really need it. Or at least I don't want to look like I need it. Or you might be a little bit skeptical. You might have been thinking, oh, come on, there's got to be a hitch. What if I get up there and to get the money I have to sing or something? Whatever it was for you, keep that thought, that awareness, maybe keep it in your back pocket as a clue to a limited mindset or some thinking you have that might be getting in the way of you receiving in other areas of your life. Now, what would you say just in general, universally, why have so many of us never learned to receive? Well, there's probably hundreds of reasons, right? But having spent over a decade as a therapist, listening to people's pain behind closed doors, I'm going to give you the 30-second cliff notes on what is it for all of us. Well, it's probably one of or a combo of three different things. Number one is you probably had somebody mistreat you early in life, and we decided mistakenly that had something to do about us. That was a reflection of our worthiness, when in fact it had nothing to do with us and everything to do with the other person. Secondly, you may have grown up in a family culture, and it might have been kind of a subtle secret motto that whoever had the least amount of needs was going to come out okay. You were going to survive. And so understandably, you got really good at having as few needs as possible and not needing to receive. Or maybe it was more general. Maybe somewhere you just got the message that what you did, what you achieved, what you produced and accomplished was way more important than who you were or what you were able to receive. We have a very high-tech clicker. It's wireless. And the good news is really none of these reasons really matter. The why we didn't learn to receive is kind of irrelevant at the end of the day. All it really takes to change, if you're thinking, well, maybe this does apply to me, maybe I'm a super giver, but I haven't learned to receive, all you need to do is have that awareness, be willing to take some uncomfortable or new action, and you can get massive positive results. One of the best ingredients in the recipe of learning how to be a better receiver is to buy into and believe the notion that you don't need to need it in order to receive it. You don't have to need it. And I think so many of you, so many of us in general, you're so good at giving, getting it done, you know you're independent, you know you can do it yourself without help, that you use that as an excuse that you don't need it, and so you don't need to receive it. So in your industry in particular, you are at super high risk if you continue to give at the pace and at the excellence at which you're all giving. There's a downside to it. You're at risk for burnout, for exhaustion, for depression, for anxiety, for over-consuming. And even probably more importantly, you're at risk for losing your edge. You're at risk of losing your passion that got you into the business in the first place, in lowering, decreasing, or even losing your creativity. Because there's a natural cycle of giving and receiving, and it can't always be about you outputting. So what if you're starting to get convinced, okay, maybe I need to learn how to receive? How would a person do that? I'd say for beginners, start small. And think about just starting to say yes more often when something good is offered to you. And start paying attention to your relationship of how many times you say no when you could have said yes. So when someone offers to cover a shift for you, they offer to open the door, or they offer to help you with your overhead luggage, or carry a bag, or work on a project, say yes. I know you don't need it. I know you're very capable, but practice saying yes. I'll tell you, one of the fun ways that I've kind of built my muscle of learning to receive is a game that I play, and you might enjoy it too. Anytime that I go into a hotel to check in or rent a car, I have a standard line after I've chit-chatted with them. I just say, hey, Bob, how would you feel about giving me a complimentary upgrade today? Well, at the very least, I can usually get them laughing. And I'm kind of proud about a 99% success rate of getting the upgrade. But that isn't the important part. What's important to me is that I give myself the message that it's okay to receive, and I remind myself to ask. And so I encourage you to think about that relationship you have with receiving. And for some of you who are maybe in a little bit of the extreme or have a hard time with that, it might also help to think about it that by being willing to receive, you are also giving somebody else the opportunity to be a giver, which is something that you so enjoy yourself. And especially in the food and beverage hospitality industry, you have to be coming from giving from a place that your cup is full and you're giving from the overflow, not that you are giving from a place of depletion and burnout and running on empty. And as Justin had mentioned about conflict resolution, one great cue to where you might not be receiving enough is when you start to feel resentment. Because resentment generally means you went into sacrifice somewhere along the way. You weren't authentic to yourself about how much you could give. You overgave, you're resentful, and now it's going to end in conflict. Not only talking about it individually for yourself, but I also encourage you to talk about this idea of receiving in your restaurants and on your teams. Have you created a culture where it's valued to receive? Or have you created a culture where, the person who hasn't had a day off in, 20 days and looks like they're worked to the bone and have never received anything are the ones who are valued? So say yes more often when good things are offered to you. Thank you.